it's Ashley from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and welcome back to my channel where I make a lot of cake and cookie decorating tutorials as well as give a lot of baking business tips. And today I'm going to be talking all about edible images. Now, I've never been a huge fan of just like an edible image being slapped on a cookie or on a cake. I really like when it's immersed into the design, and that can be a little bit tricky when it comes to things like incorporating logos. But if you're a cookier, and especially if you're doing business selling cookies, you're probably going to get a lot of orders requesting logos on cookies. And investing in an edible ink printer is going to ensure that you always have a very clean end product. And specifically, I am using this edible ink printer by InkEdibles. InkEdibles is a US-based company that provides quality prints, reliability, one-on-one training, and support to get you all set up with your edible ink printing. If you don't want to do the printing yourself, you can actually order custom printed toppers simply by uploading your image or logo, and InkEdibles will have them delivered to your door within days. Personally, though, I have absolutely loved having my own edible ink printer. It really doesn't take up that much space, and using it is fairly intuitive. Make sure that if you're not applying those frosting sheets right away to your cake or cookies, that you place it in some sort of bag. It's similar in principle to maintaining the freshness of fondant, for example. You just don't want things to dry out, and you want to make sure that when you apply it, it's really nice and smooth and soft. I'm using my classic royal icing recipe, and I always like to use meringue powder. You can use egg whites, but I just find it's easier and very food safe using meringue powder. The base recipe always starts with 1 cup of confectioner's sugar to 1 tablespoon of meringue powder, and then add as much lukewarm water as needed. And I'm not going to make pipe and flood consistency, which might be a surprise for some of you if you've watched my channel for a long time. I'm actually making somewhere in between a pipe and flood consistency and piping consistency, so it's just a little bit thicker. The reason that I do this is because I want to avoid any wrinkling that might happen once I place that edible image on. Too much water content can cause it to wrinkle, so if you've ever had difficulty placing an edible image on before, that might be the reason. Any water that hits it is going to be a problem, so make sure that you keep things incredibly dry. You might be thinking, wow, this looks incredibly messy, and you are right. And that is because I don't want to waste time making this part super perfect when I know I'm going to be covering up those borders. One thing that I'm personally not a fan of is when an edible image just sits on top of a cookie. To me, it just looks like there wasn't a lot of care with that cookie, and it looks very corporate, if you know what I mean, where things are just kind of a slap and glued because you're probably doing a large volume of cookies. So just adding some sort of border is really going to make your product look very finished. And this also helps with the fact that you don't have to cut out your edible images super perfectly. That being said, if you do want something with a little bit of just a clean edge, I do highly recommend using some sort of punch to get out your edible images. Now, from your perspective, I just finished that tray and all was done, but I actually did 70 of these cookies, and finally now I was able to move on to the fun part, which is piping on all of these details. Now, these cookies are for Christmas, so I'm making a really simple wreath. My trick to getting the proper consistency for this icing that you can actually pipe really detailed things with is add more meringue powder. You can also add a little bit more icing sugar, but if you overdo it with the icing sugar, it gets really chalky and thick, and it does not pipe nicely. So you just want to keep adding in a tablespoon of meringue powder at a time until it gets to the consistency that you're looking for. Always make sure that you whip your royal icing. I used to do it by hand. It's going to take you forever to do it that way, so definitely whip with something that is electric. There are so many different techniques that you can use to create a wreath, either out of buttercream or royal icing. All I'm doing is I'm using 2 different leaf tips. For the one leaf tip, it's like that double V, a little bit more fancy, and then the other one, I just cut a V shape into my piping bag, and then I'm using that for the lighter green here. When I first just used the one shade of green, it looked fine, it looked put together, but just a little bit boring. So I think adding in another shade of green just gives it a little bit more interest. And of course, adding on some edible pearls really makes it look Christmassy. And I know that for us cookiers, waiting for things to dry is just the worst. But in this instance, because we're using really dry consistencies in the first place, it actually dries a lot more quickly than you might think. Now, normally I use my dehydration trick when I'm doing a pipe and flood consistency, but in this instance, one, I don't need to because it's drying so quickly and I'm not really layering things in that way. And two, I am afraid that if I do use my dehydration trick for this, it's going to wreck that edible image. I've never actually tried it before, but I just have a feeling that it would create crinkles in my image and again, inevitably break because it would become very fragile and dry. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I was very, very tired after this entire project, and I am just so grateful that nothing actually happened that was that catastrophic during this project. Everything was made really simple by the fact that I didn't have to pipe all of the logos, but it was just a lot of sitting there and having to get it done. And normally that's totally fine, but I had a Christmas concert that I was putting on that week, and I was just so exhausted by the end of this. I stayed up till 2 in the morning, and then I packaged them at 6 in the morning. So I only got 4 hours of sleep, and then I had to run full-on dress rehearsals the whole day. My original intention was to add some sort of red piece on here, but I wanted to make it a bow. However, I realized, I don't think I have a bow mold actually. And if I do, I don't know where it is right now because everything is all over the place because I'm still organizing my baking kitchen. So I decided to go with the poinsettia. Now, I didn't really have an actual poinsettia mold, but I faked it a little bit with this daisy. To make things a little bit more expedient, I did use fondant, but you could easily pipe this using that royal icing, the same consistency as the green icing. And then after everything was put on there, I quickly dabbed the center with a little bit of edible gold luster dust mixed with some vodka, and it really brought it all together. And I felt like it did look like a poinsettia, even though it wasn't truly one. Like I mentioned early on in the video, uniformity is really important when you're doing sets like this. It's not like baby shower cookies or other types of cookies where you have lots of different designs. So if your circles aren't perfect, you can hide behind that. You're gonna know if your circles aren't perfect here because you are going to be giving the same cookie to every single person. More than likely, it's probably going to be a giveaway. So if you need a reliable sugar cookie recipe, definitely check mine out in the right-hand corner. Once again, a huge thank you to InkEdibles for sending me this printer. I could not be more thrilled that now I can print so many fun things. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie Fam. Right now, I'm uploading weekly, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye!